Hello fellow cineenthusiasts, welcome to the first Let's Get Reel's movie review of 2016. My name is Christina, and today is my segment called What's on Netflix, where I tell you what is on Netflix that you may not have heard of, or maybe you have, or what has a low rating. I like to watch all kinds of movies, so it doesn't matter what the rating is, I will watch it. So for today's first What's on Netflix and first Let's Get Reel's review of 2016, I have decided to watch the movie Big Fish, directed by Tim Burton. Yes, I know it's not a movie you may never have heard of. A lot of people have heard of it, and it doesn't necessarily have a low rating on Netflix, but I wanted to review this movie because it's very inspiring, it's very creative, and let's start off 2016 on a positive note. A young guy named Will, living in France with his wife Josephine, played by Marion Cotillard, has heard that his father, Ed, played by Albert Finney, is dying of cancer, I believe. So him and Josephine go back to the States and to see his father. Will and his father Ed have not really been on the best speaking terms. Will was always frustrated with his father because his father told such fantastical stories and they never really had the truth. They were always very creative and imaginative stories of how he had met a giant and he went to this town and how he fixed up this woman's house who was a witch apparently, and all the adventures that Will had gone on in his life were always just made up, and Will could never stand that, so he left home one day and he hadn't really been back in a few years. But now, of course, his father is dying, he needs to see his father, and his mother tries to, get them to be nice with each other. I mean, Ed was always kind of nice to Will, but Will just couldn't handle the fact that his father really didn't tell the truth about his life. So as Ed is dying, we hear him tell the stories of how he would go to all these places, he traveled everywhere. The story where he met Will's mom is so great. He came upon a circus and he saw, I believe she was a performer, I don't really remember, and he wanted her name and where she lived, but the guy who ran the circus, I believe is played by Danny DeVito, he would not give the information to Ed just like that. Will had to work for it, and Will happily worked for it. But the story is just cool how he would work for the circus, he did all this stuff, it was all colorful and, just really, really great visually and all the colors and everything. So it goes on and, Ed tells these stories and Will kind of starts to break down a little bit, and by the time Ed is in the hospital and he's dying, Will finally sees why his father told these stories, and it was to make life more interesting and more fun, and I'm going to keep saying this over and over again, more creative and more imaginative. And Will makes Ed happy by creating this story of all the characters Ed had been talking about in his life, like the circus owner and a big giant and the witch and the townspeople that he apparently came across, and just all these different characters in Ed's very colorful life, and that made Ed very happy, and it made Will happy as well. Tim Burton directed Big Fish, and there could not have been anyone better as a director for this film because it was so much in such a fantastical world, and we all know that Tim Burton is an expert in some ways on creating these fantastical worlds, like his Alice in Wonderland, his Sweeney Todd, all his other films, and he was just so great. I love Burton's imagination and the way he directs his films. His films are always so much fun to watch because you really do feel like you're carried away like you're supposed to in movies. You're supposed to be carried away to different places and places you wouldn't even imagine, and that's what Tim Burton does so well in all of his films. And I don't know if he has a hand in casting his films, probably does because Helena Bonham Carter was in this, but his cast is always so great, and they're always a little bit offbeat like Helena Bonham Carter, and they bring that extra special quality to the films that he makes. I really, really like this story because I don't think Ed necessarily was creating these stories to want to make his life look better. I think he was making them because he had such a great imagination and he wanted to not so much embellish on his stories. He did apparently a lot of good work for people, and he volunteered for a lot of things. He helped a woman kind of like rebuild her house. I don't think he wanted to come off as like bragging, so I think he created these stories to not just like make himself sound better, but to kind of like push his good deeds to the side and really see the people that he helped and why he helped them out and just why they needed his help, probably. Big Fish is a story that I think you can look at however you want. It's up to you to perceive the character of Ed Bloom and all his stories, and I really like that about Big Fish. And you know, it's just life is what you make of it. It's your story. You get to create it. You get to say if your life is fun. You get to do what you want and be who you want to be. And this is how Ed chose to tell his story and how he wanted to be perceived. And he really was a nice guy. He seemed like a very nice man, from not just his stories, but also from, you know, the man that was here in the real world telling the stories. The reason I chose Big Fish as my first movie for 2016 and for the first What's on Netflix for 2016 is because I encourage you all to go out and live your life in a creative way. Live your life to the full. Be the person that you want to be, and the type of person that has great stories like Ed or can create stories like him, and go and be the person you want. I have definitely been inspired by Big Fish. I cannot wait to start 2016 and become a better person. I had a great year in 2015. I started doing this channel and I met a lot of really cool friends, and now I have fun stories to tell and fun stories for me to remember. I can't wait to do that again in 2016. I can't wait to have my Big Fish story, and I encourage you all to go and be happy this year and to go find your big fish and live a life that you want. I hope you liked my review of Big Fish. If you liked it in any way, please give it a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you have seen it, or if you have any movie suggestions of what I should watch on Netflix sometime, or any movies in particular, because I review movies of all kinds. That's what I do on this channel. And if you really like this and you'd like to see more, please hit that subscribe button right there for future What's on Netflix and other movie reviews. And as always, keep watching movies and stay absolutely fabulous.